right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
What is happening this afternoon?
Jamie, just the man I'd like to see today.
Oh, yeah?
Because early on in the season, you had some thoughts about a bunch of different things that old Hazy B took issue with. And, man, did he take some digs when he had the opportunity, didn't he now? Number
I don't know
one.
what you're talking about.
I'll tell you right now. Number one, the habitant. He said night after night they stink. They stink, he said. And look where they are now. The Ottawa Senators is point B. And the third thing you said is, I have my eye on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they're going to have a bit of a resurgence. And wow, what a bunch of comments you made that have come to fruition, and not one word of apology from old Hazy.
There's no apology necessary because I've had 82 that were wrong. So, and secondly, I will say this. I thought Tampa would have a resurgence, 100%. I've been bullish on them. I liked Winnipeg too. I thought that they were going to be the finals, those two. But I thought the Habs were going to miss the playoffs, but I said I've got to clarify my comments just to be factual.
I know what they were, mid-80s.
Mid-80s, 84 to 86. I said I think they're going to play meaningful hockey. I was wrong on that front too because and full credit. This is Montreal Canadian and their fans and everybody. Full credit to that organization. I didn't see Hudson this dominant this early. Okay. We all like him.
He's won himself the Rookie of the Year.
He's been unbelievable. Secondly, they made a bold move. It was kind of under the radar, but I think it helped stabilize the group. They put Caden Primo on waivers. That was, a drafted and developed goaltender of theirs, and it was a big move because it allowed that Dobush to come up. I'm butchering his name, Dobre, but he's been unbelievable and given them minutes when Montembeault needs a night off. Then you throw in the one I was kind of I thought Caulfield would get 40. Remember and people were mocking me on that one. Now I don't think he's there yet, but he's close. He's damn close. That's the only one that I was kind of like I could see this guy doing some damage. But you know what? We throw spaghetti at the wall and some of it sticks. So in the end, I think it's awesome for all these fan bases. Hayes, you tweeted out, what was it last night, did you say?
Well, just the fact that the three of them are there. I mean, in the
amazing.
East in particular. I mean, Edmonton's going to get there. Winnipeg's going to get there. Vancouver and Calgary, I think that ship has sailed. But, it's pretty incredible. Like Ottawa, they've been a pretty consistent team throughout the year. Montreal is just on a heater. And not to take anything away from them, the other teams are just not pulling their weight. The Rangers have been horrendous.
Dude, imagine, Hayes, the Rangers not getting into the playoffs in the Metro this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even last night, like Detroit, they outshot them like 23-4 in the first period.
Not a serious team, man.
But then that was it. They threw everything at them in the first period. It wasn't enough, and the Habs, to their credit, Montembeault was great. They were just resilient, and they win 4-3, and then all of a sudden, see you later.
Well, You throw in, too, Brian, like we've said it all along, these teams that go on a 5-game stretch one way or the other, it might be the difference. Montreal's won 6 in a row. You know who's one of the hottest teams in the NHL, and it's at the wrong time? Your Buffalo Sabres,
Buffalo's
Brian.
on fire right now.
They are 8-2. They're just taking themselves out of lottery, out of a better pick. And it's just, I'm sure people in Buffalo are kind of going, what the hell, and where was this? But James Reimer's won his last 7. He's 37 years old. Like, where are we at with that? Like, is it just fool's gold?
Of course
it's fool's gold. Let him be the backup next year and try to flip the other guy for a real quality goaltender, and hopefully that you can carry the momentum. And hopefully they realize that you need some good goaltending to win games. I know, Jamie, you always come back with they got to play better in front. Yeah, but they finally got some stabilized goaltending, and look what's happening. You can't compete in the league with garbage goaltending. And all these teams and all these smarty pants think you can win. Like, how Carolina didn't try to upgrade on their goaltending. They're another team that's going to go try to win a cup with that goaltending they've had. Good luck with that, man. Because if they get pounced, I'm going to say, why did you think that goaltending was good? You can't do it. And Reimer's standing on his head, and it gives everybody confidence, and you can come back. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think you got to be careful with teams that are out of it, and then they get on a heater late.
That is a dangerous game.
No, it's absolutely dangerous. It's like putting stock into the preseason, and stock into the last 15 games when you've done nothing. I will believe it when I see it with Buffalo. I'll believe it when I see it with, a lot of these different teams. Yeah. But, it is at the same time, I said the same thing about Ottawa. I said the same thing about Montreal. And you know what? They deserved it. Like, credit to Ottawa. They haven't been in the playoffs in 7 years. That's like, let's not pretend like I was saying something that other people weren't saying. They had to prove it. Just like the Leafs. Like, if the Leafs win a Stanley Cup, there's going to be people like, I told you, okay, good for you. You knew it. You knew they were going to finally win. But a lot of people naturally are in a position where they say, you got to go prove it.
Show me.
You don't just get the luxury of I always believed. Like, that's not real life. That's the beauty of sports, man. It's merit based. You've got to go out and earn it and do it. And I will give Ottawa all the credit in the world. They've done that. And Montreal is an even more incredible story. How red hot they've been, and they haven't officially punched a ticket, but they basically did it last night. It's an incredible story, and I'm looking forward to seeing what both teams can do come playoff time.
I don't think, I think they're in. I mean, the Rangers have to win out, and Montreal has to lose out. Over. And the same thing with Detroit. It's over. They're in. It's just a matter. Now, that being said, here's something crazy, too. They are... they could catch Ottawa. They're 3 points behind Ottawa.
Yeah.
That's, there's a lot of, we were talking, it was a terrible game last night. Columbus on home ice, Columbus are rock stars. On the road, you guys saw it in Toronto the other day. They did the same thing in Ottawa the other day. But in that building, they score, they do all these things. It was a terrible game last night. So I was constantly scoreboard watching, going, okay, what's going on in Montreal? What's going on in Florida? You're watching throughout the league. And I mean, this is a huge game for the Leafs tonight because, that race isn't done yet. Kind of at the top of the Atlantic. There's races all around here. So we could be having this conversation a week from now, and things could look a little bit different if there's 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, if there's anything we've learned over the last week or so, there is still a lot of room for movement, including on the Leaf front. Like Florida winning last night and Ottawa losing puts a buffer in front of the Panthers and Ottawa to the extent where you have to believe the Panthers are going to finish third now in the division and probably wrap that up last night. And as for the Leafs, you go into the game tonight where Tampa's 2 points behind you. I think they're tied in regulation wins, so that's the first tiebreaker. And they've played the same amount of games. So you can't really picture a bigger game in terms of importance because of what we witnessed last night, where I thought the Leafs, they no-showed for the most part. 3-1 was a flattering scoreline.
There was some yucky comments after the game, stuff where I read them this morning. I had to turn away from my phone. Stuff like they're so soft, and I was like, oh, no.
Well, we have the one clip. Let's play it here because this is Matthew Knies, who's still a relatively young player, very important player, young player, but this is a scenario last night where not only did Florida outpossess them, outscore them, outplay them, they out-hit them last night. I think the hits were like 43-29, which is tough to do when you have the puck all night. Right. But Florida just pushed them out, especially the Leafs' best players. The Leafs' best players completely no-showed last night. And here's what Matthew Knies had to say about the way the game kind of played out last night.
I mean, it's always physical. We expect it when we come in here that it's going to be, a hard battle. And, so we knew it was going to be like this. And, we tried to push back, but I think we didn't do a good enough job. I think our physicality, I think we were a little bit soft in some areas and, not through the full 60. So, we're going to have to learn to do that when it comes to playoff times.
It's a tough word to use, man.
The word learn was tough to hear.
Learn and soft. All in there. That's a kind of cocktail that nobody wants right now if you're a Leaf fan.
I know. I get it, but I think he was being honest in a one-game vacuum. That's the other thing. And then near the end, there was some chippiness and all of that. But it's just to me, I don't think the Leafs' recipe of beating Tampa is running guys through the boards. You gotta play tight. Like, yes, you can be physical. Florida's a different animal. They're just the way they play their style. But Tampa has a different style too. So if the Leafs come out and try and just run guys through the boards and put Tampa on the power play, you can see what that guy on the wing does. Like this Kucherov, if he decides that he wants to play on a night, he's dangerous.
Well, he
right?
decides every single night. I mean,
guys.
I don't think you can question his decision to play. I mean, this guy leading the league in points, man.
Last night there were some plays that were just like that. Nick Robertson tried some plays last night that I thought were absolutely like he tried behind his own net to go off the back of the net to himself, and even Mitch Marner in the neutral zone one time, he put it through a guy's legs, he got by him, and then he tried to dangle another guy, and some guy just came and grabbed him and chucked him against the boards, and they took the puck, and I'm like, that is never going to work against those guys. Like, never going to work.
Well, that is what I think became clear last night, this debate that I'm not even sure how much of a debate it's actually been at who you want in the first round. Anyone but that team is who you want. And Ottawa can take that as a slight. Guess what? Tampa sees it the exact same way. Tampa wants nothing to do with the Panthers. They're dying to play Ottawa, dying to play Montreal. And the Leafs are thinking the same thing. And that's why I think you're going to get a huge, huge response from the Leafs tonight. Yeah. You better get one. And I think Tampa is going to be flying tonight because that is what the Panthers are capable of doing. That's without Bennett last night, without Tkachuk, without Ekblad.
That's exactly right, Hayes. That's how that was just a little like an appetizer of what's to come in a couple weeks. And I'm sure Toronto was like, oh, this wasn't what it was like a couple days ago. And they'll be a handful again, man.
Well, absolutely. They'll be a massive handful if you play them in the playoffs.
The one thing that I think everyone should just maybe wrap their head around is we don't know who they're going to play. And you're right. You can wish for certain things, but then you better be careful what you wish for just because it may not work out. Like, we don't know if Florida, if everything just lines up for them in the playoffs. If it just Tkachuk hits the ground running, Ekblad 2 games in comes back and is in, perfect game shape, all of that. There's a lot of what ifs with everything. And, you can look at season series, you look on, the Leafs have played Tampa really well in the season series. Well, Ottawa's played the Leafs very well in the season series. So you're right. Like, I think people going, well, we want this team, we want that team. I think what you need to worry about if you're any team, Ottawa, Montreal, Leafs, Florida, and Tampa, is worry that your team is playing its best at the right time.
And you know what? The Leafs were doing that, Jamie. They were doing that up until last night, and then the switch went off.
It's one night. It's one night. I think, if you have a response,
it was one
night,
but it's more worrisome for people that have been watching this stuff go on for because everyone was like, oh, so it's that kind of game, and then the words like soft and didn't compete and got bullied around the ice, and that just gets people's ears up, man. Like, people are like, so. Yeah. And I've also had somebody say to me, they're like, I hear you guys talking like you want to avoid Florida. Like, what does that say about your own team if you want to avoid the Florida Panthers? Until what? You want to try to get them in the second round? Is that going to give you any better chance to take them down? Like, what does that even mean about your team if you're?
I think what people are hoping for is injuries. Like, I think that's.
Okay, but what kind of world is that?
Listen,
you think the Colorado Avalanche are like? Man, I hope Vegas plays Dallas. The Colorado Avalanche are like, bring it on, man. Give us Dallas. Give us Vegas. We don't care. But Vegas is like, give us whoever. We don't care.
Well, and that's what Florida's saying. Florida's like, we don't care either. They were.
They
due
don't
for
give a rat's ass who they play.
They don't care. And listen, they were due for a game like that last night. They had lost 5 in a row. The Leafs ran into them earlier in the year. The same thing. The first time they played Florida, Panthers had lost 3 or 4 in a row and sloppy. And Maurice was on them and snapping. And Florida beat them pretty handily that night too. So there is, ebbs and
Context.
flows over a season, of course. But it's not at all surprising that the psyche of a fan base that has been absolutely tortured forever is uneasy with things. I mean, that's where Leaf fans are. And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth, and it's the reputation that this team has built up by their own doing. And by their own history, that it really wouldn't matter who they play. Leaf fans would feel anxiety and feel nervousness. And I think it's even more amplified when you play a team like Florida, who got them in the fashion they did 2 years ago, who are the Cup champs, who seemingly snap their finger when they want to and say, okay, now we're going to show you how we play. And they did that last night.
Yep.
And that's going to mess with your psyche. And I've had the same experience as you guys, I'm sure have, talking with Leaf fans and texting with friends and family members, because we've been discussing this the last week or so, the idea that players are starting to prepare for the playoffs. Like the playoffs are coming and you start to change your tune and you can feel a little bit of a different buzz and vibe around the team. And fans are starting to prepare as well, and they're doing so by putting a shield up. That's what they're doing. That's what Leaf fans are doing.
Define the shield.
The shield is they're going to do it again. Like, it's going to happen again.
Oh, the negative.
Digging a bunker in their backyard to
absolutely
put a TV into it, and they're going to watch the games. And if something bad happens, they're just going to close the bunker and ignore all their other Montreal Canadiens.
It's unfortunately an annual tradition until the team allows them to feel differently.
To change it. Yeah.
It has to happen. It has to happen. Like the players, the core players, the every player on this team, the whole organization, they've got to burst through this because of this mentality we're talking about. It's a sickening feeling that you're preparing for the worst all the time. But how could you expect anything different when we're in year 9 and they've run into it every year and found a way to, be out in the first round? And I think that was amplified again last night. It can flip if they play great tonight. That's the reality. But I think Leaf fans are kind of preparing for the playoffs, and last night didn't help them.
Yeah, it's a fair comment, but I always look at it in a vacuum going, okay, it's one game, and you're right. If they have a bounce back, then it looks like then now all of a sudden they can they win the division, and
that would be great. That would be an awesome start. But it's not.
They have
9
had
years
bounce
isn't
backs.
a vacuum, though. Is
the
point.
one thing I'll give this team this year
right.
is they've had some bounce backs where they've had some performances where you're like, God, I hate that, and they come back and they play better. Like, that coach does a pretty good job of getting those guys fired back up, and they'll have a performance tonight. I'll almost bank on it.
I think they need one, yeah, and I'd be surprised too if they their best players in particular. Like
they were
Matthews
god
and Marner
awful.
were
They didn't
awful
piss a
last
drop.
night.
Any of those guys.
They were awful last night.
Yeah, they didn't have a game.
Again, Florida showed up. Florida's allowed to play. They played well. Florida deserved that win. They had to get a win. They lost 5 in a row. It's a tough place to play, and if you end up playing them in the playoffs, then you got to find a way to beat them 4 times. Like, you're not just going to lay down and say you go ahead and go back on a cup run. But Florida's going to be very difficult to beat 4 times if they're healthy. That includes Tampa, Toronto, whoever they might play. That's going to be the reality. But, yeah, if you're the Leafs, and I think if you're the best players, and you got Stolarz in net tonight, Joseph Woll was great. They didn't lose because of Wall last night. He was outstanding.
Very good. Yeah.
You got to have a response, and I think Tampa will have one too because they're cooking right now. They've been playing great for the last couple of months. And, again, they're not stupid down there. They'd prefer – they're not going to say it publicly. Nobody will. You'd obviously prefer to play Ottawa instead of Florida.
Well,
that's what you're thinking right now.
100%, but it's because of what you laid out. Ottawa just made the playoffs for their first time. That core, this will be their first taste. Now, there's guys on that team that have won cups. David Perron, Amadio. That's why Steve Stais went and got those guys. Nick Cousins to help around those young guys to grow. But every team will go, yeah, would I prefer to play Florida or Tampa or Ottawa? Well, that's the case because Florida, we have a sample size. Tampa, we have a sample size. Don't have a sample size on Ottawa. And right now, what you just laid out, the sample size for the Toronto Maple Leafs in that core hasn't been deep runs. So until we see otherwise, that's the mindset. That's really
well, and you're right. Like conversely, Ottawa, I'm sure is saying we want the Leafs instead of Tampa. Right, like they're rooting for the Leafs tonight. I would. They're not going to say that publicly, but they're thinking that because of the Leafs' history and the Sens have beat them 3 times this year and played them well. So again, I think if we played the truth serum game,
dude, all of them would say, "Give us the Leafs."
Yes,
we'll take our chances with the Leafs.
But you're right, but it's not just in the Atlantic. I think, you're right. The Colorado Avalanche, they probably go bring on whoever, but Dallas is a hell of a team. Like that's going to be a killer series. Killer and unbelievable because both of those teams are legitimate cup contenders, like legitimate. And, I think other teams are going, okay, let those two beat the hell out of each other because that's probably going to be a 7-gamer and all of that. And maybe, if they limp out of it, maybe we can catch them. That's the thought process. But I don't see I know you guys felt like there might be, one maybe team that gets dummied type of thing. I just, with the way teams are playing right now, I just don't see like any teams getting dummied in the first round. I just don't.
There's just definitely, there's going to be series that are going to elevate, above and beyond in terms of the spotlight up here. And if there are 5 Canadian teams that are going to get there, and we think there will be, if you have a Battle of Ontario, Battle of Florida, Dallas versus Colorado, it'll be interesting to see what kind of play Vegas, Minnesota gets up here. Carolina, Jersey.
Well, dude, like to Gary's point, like he's kind of got a point. Like in the first round, if you get Ottawa, Toronto, and Florida, Tampa, and Colorado, Dallas, that's pretty exciting stuff. I know good teams are going to get punted early, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you want to talk about jacking up the excitement early on in the playoffs, that's pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Usually the first round has that type of excitement, and then there's a lull. Depending on there's some lulls, and then until it ramps up again in the semifinals and the finals, all of that. But I think what it is that first round is so crazy, like it's just electric on so many different fronts. So we'll see, and the matchups seem to be for the most part, I don't know. I don't think they're 100% cemented, but you're leaning. There's percentages, right?
But they're trending certainly in that direction. Again, Florida, that was pretty big last night for Florida to more or less solidify third place. I guess technically they still could catch Tampa. They could catch the Maple Leafs for sure. And as we said about 15 minutes ago, like things change pretty quickly in this league. And, on the flip side, the same thing with St. Louis and Minnesota kind of jockeying for position. And Edmonton, it doesn't feel like they're going to have home ice, and the injuries keep piling up. And
I don't think they shut those guys down right till a couple games before playoffs.
Yeah,
it sounds like they're going to do that, and why wouldn't you? You need health. You can't afford rushing guys back and then having somebody relapse in the playoffs. Like
Absolutely.
I think they're going to take their chances going, hey, LA's a hell of a team, man. I think they're a hell of a team, and I don't think anybody can sleep on them. But, I think Edmonton would probably try and take their chances and try and get health instead of, home ice.
I think that's got to be the priority, and they may not have a choice anyway. These guys aren't like that close to returning. I mean, it doesn't sound like McDavid's that close. Maybe another week or so. Same thing with Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins is not going to play tonight. He's out due to illness. So, it looks like they're just going to kind of find a way to backdoor in, and they'll start in L.A. Dave Poulin's coming up. Dave Poulin will join us later this hour on Ottawa, making it back to the playoffs. Poulin's been there for a couple of years, and this has got to be very, very encouraging, and I'm sure they should be incredibly happy with what they've built and how they've performed this year. A lot of things have broken their way, and they're going back to the playoffs.
What if Poulin came on? Poulin left us, it was last January 1st. So what if Poulin came on and just was like, it's the team I put together. Like just threw Staios under the bus.
Yeah, it's all Poulin.
It's like, what if he was just literally like, this was all me, and,
While I was on the desk, I wrote down a bunch of players' names, and I handed it to Staios, and he made the transactions, and now we're in.
I was waiting for you to go, I gave Poulin a lot of the ideas, and Poulin executed it. So on the panel.
That could be true, too. We'll promote that idea.
Yeah.
All right, so Pooley's coming up. We got James Duthie will join us from Augusta National. Brad Faxon coming up later this afternoon as well. As we're on the eve of the Masters, we're going to have picks.
He was on fire today on the Golf Channel.
The
Golf Channel was on fuego today. Everyone had their green kind of outfits on. That Gary player was wheeling around the park. That's it for him. This is the last year,
It has to
Hayes.
come to an end, man.
Dude, that's it. A week before the tournament, he said it's the worst major. If I'm Freddie Ridley, just call him up and say that's it.
We don't want the scissor kicking on the green.
Why? You notice how Craig Stadler just has a steak and some booze, and he goes home.
Yeah.
He doesn't play in the par 3. He's not a problem for anybody. Stads just gets creamed in the butler cabin, and he goes home.
Stads looked great in that team picture last night.
He had such a great meal after that meal. He was so happy.
When do I start wearing my sweatshirt?
Well, I was thinking tomorrow. Yeah, because I was thinking about it today. I'm going to wear it tomorrow and Friday. I'm wearing the exact same quarter zip I wore yesterday, only in green, because last year I blacked out outside of the pro shop last year and just said, get me 1 or 2 of everything you can find in there. And this is the week for me to pull them out. So, yeah, I think we do hoodie tomorrow, hoodie Friday, as we commemorate the Shark himself and the meltdown back in '96. So we'll get to our picks later this afternoon. Again, Leafs Tampa tonight. The Vladdy signing is official. He has officially put pen to paper. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is locked in, 14 years, $500 million. Another very impressive win last night. Easton Lucas looked great on the mound. Jay's back in action in Fenway tonight, or at Fenway tonight, so we'll look ahead to that as well a little bit later this afternoon. And Lucas back in Dallas tonight. It's going to be a good one. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We got James Duthie from Augusta National in just over half an hour. We're going to do a little mini Jerry today. We've been doing a lot of mini Jerrys recently. Yeah, I figured we'd just rapid-fire mini Jerrys because there's so much stuff going on, right, with the
mini
Leafs
Jerry's
in Tampa
for
tonight.
life.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
My concern is that mini Jerry's going to go over so well that, like, the real Jerry may not return, but I think he has to. He will.
Yeah, he's got to.
I think every 6 weeks, the big Jerry says, step aside. I'm back.
Right. Yes. I think you might be onto something there. So we'll reach out to him and see what his schedule's like. But
maybe a mini Jerry for Poulin saying, what percentage did you put on that the second year in Ottawa you'd be in the playoffs?
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Let's bring him in. Here he is, the Senior VP of Hockey Operations with the Ottawa Senators. They've got the X beside their name. They're off to the playoffs. Here's Dave Poulin. What's happening, Dave?
Gentlemen, that X is a very big X. It's a large X when you're watching it, and it feels like we've been playing in the playoffs for the last, 6 weeks. Like every night you're watching the scoreboard, and you're watching the standings, and you're involved in a one-goal game, and it's just torturous up there. And you can do very little about it once the game starts, as you guys know. But and it was such a weird night because we didn't play well. We lose the game, and then literally as we're going down in the elevator, Montreal pots 2 empty net goals. And so by the time we get down the locker room, you walk into the coach's office, and it's pretty quiet in there. They're not happy at all. And within 5 minutes, the whole thing had turned around, gentlemen. And there was a celebration going on with the players that was very proud.
Yeah, as you should be. And O asked, I guess we might as well follow it up and have you ask. We were doing a mini Jerry on the likelihood that you guys would make the playoffs this year. If you could take us back to September, like, what was the expectation in the room, and what was the percentage you would have put on the likelihood that you guys would have gotten that X beside your name at some point?
Well, I was way smarter when I was in your seat. Like, way smarter.
Yeah.
Like, when I was doing this show and when I was doing the panel with we were all over things like this. We liked the group we put together. We made some significant changes, and I arrived here a year and a half ago, so literally on December 31st, January 1st. And what we talked about at first was taking the rest of last year to try and figure out what we had. And it included, did we have anything in Belleville that could help, or could we, what would happen down there? Because the organization from doing the games from the broadcast feed, but you really don't know it from watching on an every night basis. And we really did try and drill down on what we had, and to try and figure out if we supported this core group with a couple more veterans, changing the goaltending situation. And so we had made those changes. So going into the year, we were confident that we'd improved our goaltending situation with Linus Ullmark, and we liked the moves we'd made, but you don't know what kind of an impact they're going to have on the rest of the group. And we didn't have David Perron out of the gate at all, for personal reasons originally, and then an injury. And we seemed to have somebody key out. We were missing Artem Zub for the good portion of the first part of the year. And so Jake Sanderson didn't have his regular partner. And then, as we started to get healthy, and it was probably about Christmas when we started. You know what it was, guys? It was during the World Junior road trip. I mean, we were on that. It was 9 straight games on the road broken up by Christmas. And it was like, if we can come out of this part okay, we're going to be okay here. And that was probably breaking even through that 9-game stretch was probably what put us in a good seat moving forward in the second half of the year.
So, Poulin, you just outlined some of the moves. Is there one thing that you can put your finger on as maybe the biggest impact? Was it, Linus coming in? Was it, Travis Green, his impact, coaching, the veteran players that you mentioned, and Perron and, Amadio, guys like that? Or is it just a combination of everything, or internal growth of some of your players, a guy like Batherson, who's really found another level this year? Has it been one thing or just a combination?
It really is a combination of all those things. And one name neither one of us have mentioned, but that had a big impact was Nick Jensen. The trade for Jacob Chychrun, and everyone was like, oh, geez, he moved Chychrun, and, he's had a great year, and he has had a tremendous year and got the big contract in Washington, but he simply didn't fit with the way we were made up on the left side. And what Jensen did was give Thomas Chabot a partner that seemed to fit perfectly, and Chabot has had a tremendous year. And so it really is a little bit of everything. It is that internal growth that we talked about last year, and, could guys take steps? And really pointedly went out and, we did bring a little, pedigree, swagger in Stanley Cups with David Perron and Nick Cousins and Michael Amadio. So there's a little bit of that in the room. And then, we had a couple guys that we signed because, one was coming back to Belleville. That was Matthew Highmore. And Adam Gaudette comes in, and it's just had a terrific year, guys, in the fourth line center hole, and has contributed offensively. And those two guys were targeted for Belleville. And Travis had coached both of them in Vancouver, and so he was comfortable with them. So you need guys like that you aren't expecting at the start of the year to be big factors to come in and do something. But it really has been a total team effort. And if Steve Stales talks about one thing more than any other thing, it's the culture that we had to change here. We had to change the culture of the room, down to the individuals, down to the kid that cleaned the room, down to, every trainer, the way we walked around here. The entrance that we entered the building in is now different. We have our own private entrance into our own locker room area, and all those little details. He does not miss one single thing in terms of details. And so a large part of that is giving these guys a little bit of a swagger and a little bit of a, hey, we're the Ottawa Senators.
Poulin, the one guy that's always had swagger is the captain, Brady. And there's always been the connection or the lack of connection to the playoffs. Like, how fired up do you think that cat's going to be in the first night? Like, are you going to have to calm him down, or is it going to be just so exciting for the organization, the players, to just say, maybe just watch that guy and see how fired up he is, because it'll be the ultimate example of leadership to just follow his lead in the playoffs?
Oh, I am never going to try and calm Brady Tkachuk down, trust me. I want him to go. It'd be like trying to calm you down on the panel. Yeah. You can't do it.
Impossible.
Impossible. You're fired up and you're going and you're emotional, and that's what makes it all work. And, he took another step with the Four Nations in terms of his leadership. Jake Sanderson took a big step at the Four Nations, and that's the beauty of those tournaments, and everyone says, well, you lost them a few games to injury, but what those guys brought back from that competition, they're just different as players and from a confidence standpoint. And Brady's day-to-day operation is exactly what you see. He is fired up. That car is literally the first one in the parking lot every morning, and I'm here early. And that car's in the parking lot, and he's here, and he's got everybody fired up inside, and he can't wait. And he and Thomas Chabot have both played north of 500 games without playing a playoff game, which is it's a crazy stat, and there's a lot of excitement about that.
As there should be with Dave Poulin. Ottawa clinching their playoff spot last night, and we have been discussing it a lot here in Toronto about what these matchups could look like, Poulin, and there's a lot of people, I think, in Toronto and Tampa saying we want to avoid Florida. We got to avoid Florida. Give us Ottawa. When you hear that, how do you respond to it?
I'm thinking back to when I played, Brian. Whoever we got in the first round, we thought was the toughest matchup in the entire playoffs. It just seemed like, when I was in Philadelphia, when I was in Boston, Particularly, you'd get the first round matchup. So how can we get these guys in the first round? They're playing so well right now, and you don't pick your first round playoff partner. You simply don't, and it chooses you. And when this all settles, we'll watch. You're watching with interest to see what happens around you, and we've still got 4 games left, so we can dictate a little bit of that ourselves. But it's going to be fun, however it shakes out.
Yeah, it sure will, because all these teams, the division has been so good for so long, and I'm curious about when you talk about how great it was last night when you realized you clinched, and the journey, and the turnover with yourself coming in and Staios and Travis Green, even Michael Andlauer, a new owner. The division, like the daunting task of catching up with the Floridas and the Tampas, and Boston's been so great for so long, and the Leafs in the regular season have been a stalwart for almost a decade now. How would you compare and contrast like where this division stands today to where it maybe was when, again, you were on the panel a couple of years ago?
Well, it looks like it is going to change a little bit. It may change if Montreal, continues their play and makes the playoffs. There's 5 Atlantic teams, and so at the start of the year, if you wanted to make the playoffs in the Atlantic, you had to say, well, who's coming out? And no one was suggesting that Boston was, and everybody was like, well, Detroit's coming, Buffalo's coming, that. And, we wanted to think we were coming. You knew Montreal was a good team. I'd done a bunch of their games over the last couple of years. You knew they were coming. And no one was suspecting that one of the 2 divisions would have 5 teams in there, and that's what may happen. So it's a challenge. And, we played, you try and figure out the schedule, and you're looking at it, you're like, well, we've got some home games coming up. But going into last week, we had Tampa and Florida, twice in 3 days in our building, and you're thinking, wow, you've got to get through these games. And we played well in both and won both, and our goaltending was good in both. And then you breathe a little bit, and then you got Columbus coming in who's fighting for it. And so I think part of our every night competition is what makes it good. And it really does. You cannot take a night off. We've had some of our toughest games against some of the teams that aren't even going to make the playoffs this year.
So, Poulin, now that the X is beside the team's name in the standings, internally, do you talk to Greeny and talk to the staff and see if guys are nicked up? Do you look at planning out the next 4 games? What's best to ramp up for the playoffs? Maybe some rest for some of the key guys, or is it just to allow Travis to deploy the way he wants to deploy?
Yeah, Travis will deploy. Stevie and he have a great relationship in that, and we're in on the conversations, and we I really do have to applaud our coaching staff from top to bottom. They've just done a great job of, I believe going into last night, we were 10th in goals against, and, we finished 26th to 28th last year. That kind of a turnaround in goals against is getting a buy-in, and that has been their focus. But Travis has done a terrific job, and his group, Mike Yeo and Nolan Baumgartner, and Daniel Alfredsson's the coach, guys. The way he's bought into this has really been fun to watch, and Ben Sexton does a great job, and Justin Peters in net. So it's the coaching staff that you really look at and really applaud in this, and they will dictate who plays. And we're still limited. It can't be a wholesale unless you've got some injuries, because you're still limited with the 4 recall rule from the American Hockey League. So you still got some limitations on what you can do from a cap standpoint. It looks like we may get Nick Cousins back here late in the year, so we'll have to figure out whether that's in the regular season or not. We do have room to bring him back financially, and he's just going through his testing, so that would be a big plus late in the year to inject that experience back in the lineup.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, 4 more to go, but then it is go time in about 10 days, and the Ottawa Senators back in the dance, and it's going to be a blast to see how you guys play and where this story ends, because it's been a lot of fun to watch you guys all year. Great stuff, Poulin. Appreciate you doing this. Congrats to you and everyone there in Ottawa, and we'll chat up again soon. Maybe in 10 days. Maybe you'll be in town. Who knows? We'll see.
We may very well be, guys. And, hey, real quick, I just wanted to mention, as the excitement of the playoffs and with Ovi and everything else, and 2 names, that I got to know over the years, and Greg Millen, and today we hear about Ray Shero. These guys are far too young to be leaving our great game, and both were great, great hockey people, and that's what they were. And Ray, you sort of had a special connection with because, his dad had coached the Flyers, and I was a Flyer, so he was in college when I was a Flyer. And then Millsy, obviously, we all knew through the TV world, as much as the goaltending world and the NHL world. But, it's a somber moment when we lose great names like that. We're coming into our playoffs, and we're all so excited to be a part of things, and we lose two great names from the game.
Absolutely. Very well put. Thank you, Poulin. We appreciate you doing this.
Okay, guys, have a great day. Enjoy the hockey.
Absolutely. There's Dave Poulin. And, that's important messaging. Obviously, everyone here at OverDrive TSN thinking of the Millen family, the Shiro family.
Yeah.
Back-to-back days, big hits for the hockey community.
Devastating. Yeah. I mean, it's awful. And I'm sure we've all crossed paths with them. Greg Millen, I stayed in touch with quite a bit, in color and all of that. And Shiro, I remember Shiro coming to see us at the draft one time.
That's
right.
He's
just a wonderful person. So
really sad stuff. Like, it's just, there's no words. It's just, it's a terrible couple days for everyone in hockey, and especially their families, obviously.
Absolutely. All right, James Duthie in about 20 minutes. Mini Jerry's coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, James Duthie will join us in about 15 minutes. Leafs Lightning tonight. Blue Jays Red Sox at Fenway tonight. Raptors at home, wrapping up their home schedule. We got Luka back in Dallas tonight.
Oh, my God.
Street clothes against the Lakers.
You forgot to say first place Blue Jays.
First place Blue Jays, man. They looked good last night. George Springer I don't know what this guy got up to.
Fire.
He's on fire.
He had a good offseason. That's what he did.
He had a great offseason, and he was batting cleanup last night. That's 4 home runs out of the cleanup position because Jimenez is 3. He's got 1. I don't think they had more than 4 or 5 all year in the cleanup position last year. They've already hit that marker, and it's April 9th with Springer and Jimenez.
Dude, enjoy the ups while they're there because I still don't think they're that good. They've had some nice things happen and some – at least it's not like 3-1. Remember the 3-1 losses where they couldn't hit to start last year? It was embarrassing.
Oh, it was tough, man.
It was gross to watch. So at least it's somewhat entertaining. There's some positive stories. The contract's out of the way. Hopefully he can start cooking now because he's not. So
well, the details on the contract, like the signing bonus, it's a $500 million contract, and I think $325 million is in the form of signing bonuses, which will spread out over the course of the 14 years. But I'm not sure exactly what that's all about.
So you're telling me he's going to do the Austin Matthews program where every July 1st or whatever he's going to go to the mailbox and there's going to be a
I think so.
Change in there?
Yeah, it's like $25 million, $30 million cash waiting for him or whatever it is every single year. I wouldn't complain about that. Like, I understand why Vladdy would ask for it. I don't know what the Jays got out of this, other than the player and the services and his commitment to the market. I'm not against it. I like it. Let's go for it here. But Vladdy's agent, get this guy on the phone because he is a brilliant individual. He played this like a fiddle.
Yeah, he is.
What a move. Gets him up to $500 million, all the signing bonuses, full no trade, everything, man. All the cards are in Vladdy's side of the table here.
What's the reaction though? Like you're the voice of Toronto sports, Ryan.
Am I? Thank you.
What's your brother's reaction to? Like, is this happy or are people going, geez, the last 7 years this guy might be, are they concerned?
Of course the concern
this is
7
how my
8
brother
years
thinks
from
of
now,
it. I know how he thinks of it. He didn't want to give him this money, and here's what's going to happen. When this guy's got 10 dingers halfway through the season, he's going to watch it every day in his tight bathing suit in his backyard by the pool, and he'll be yelling at the TV, why'd you give this guy this money? Like, that's a negative thing, but that's how he's going to look at it. There's just no doubt in my mind because it's so much cake, man.
It's a lot of money. It is actually, I think, a perfect example of how the human mind works and how the mind of a sports fan works because I think you can spin it both ways where I look at it, I think a lot of people live in the moment. It's a celebration. Vladdy's staying. He's a great player. All he knows is Blue Jays. He's going to stay with the Blue Jays. They've missed out on all these other guys. They're a couple games over 500. They're rolling in Fenway. Let's go. That's how I think a lot of people will be thinking. And then the other end of it is what O just pointed out. If they're on pace for 78 wins and Vladdy's going to hit 27 home runs this year instead of 40, people are going to be yelling and screaming as if it's their money. and
Right.
it's not their money. It's Rodgers gave them the money. They spent it. There's no
Hayes,
turning
you're
back.
trying to tell me that when this deal goes down, they don't expect this guy to turn into some kind of like
You have to.
Ohtani type figure where he drags his team into some great things. Like, this isn't for putting on the jacket after wheeling around the bases and hitting 25 home runs. This is okay, you're going to be the guy now to take us somewhere.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the money or the player.
You're right. There's an intangible element to it. I'd use Bryce Harper in Philly as an example, where he showed up and he was like, yeah, I'm getting paid a lot of money, and this is a tough blue-collar town. They're going to expect a lot of things, but I'm going to provide a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right.
And guess what team won a World Series when Bryce Harper left?
The Washington Nationals.
Damn right.
Absolutely. But you're right, man. That should be the expectation. That is the expectation. Like, now you have a right to be harder on Vladdy than any other player because of what comes with this contract and what comes with the commitment. You have to show up now. You got to be reasonable. You can't be unfair. He's not Ohtani. He never will be. But he's got to mash. He's got to play every day. He's got to mash. He's got to be a leader for this club. Has to.
Yeah.
James Duthie and Mini Jerry's coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.